Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our what is now our virtual Mishnah Berurah share instead of our uh, live in-person Mishnah Berurah share. So we are holding, and apologies to Peter if you don't like my phraseology. However, every profession, every umnus has its own unique phraseology, and that's what we say in the Torah world. When we're pointing out the place that we're up to, we say we're holding. So we are holding on the very bottom of Nun Aleph Amud Beis in the Ramah. By me, it's the last word on the page. The Ramah says, we had said yesterday that it is better when you draw the Mayim Shalanu, it's better to draw it from the rivers than it is to draw it from the wells. And the Mishnah Berurah had said that the wells have more inherent heat in them, the well water, than do the rivers, because the rivers run above ground while the wells are an underground water source. And somehow the heat of the sun is more contained in that water than it is in the above ground water. Now, all the way on the bottom of Nun Aleph Amud Beis in the Ramah, the last word of the Ramah here, the Ramah says, Avol kishanaharos gedolos, when the rivers are very full, mehavsharas shlogim ugishamim, from the melting of the snows and from rain. So in that case, Tov Yoser Lishav bin Habe'eros. At that time, it's better to draw the Mayim Shalanu from the wells and not from the rivers. Why is that? Says the Mishnah Berurah on Nun Beis Amud Aleph in Ois Katan Yud Zayin, Mehav Sharas Shlogim, when the rivers are swelled from the melting snow, so then it's better to take the water from a well, says the Chavetz Chaim in Ois Katan Yud Zayin, the Oz Mei Be'eros Miskarin Yoser Mehem, because during the seasons when the rivers are full with melting snow, then, believe it or not, the well water is cooler than the river water. Benisan hachamo mahaleches baharim, because during the spring in Nisan the sun is very strong on the mountains. Kedei lefasher hashlagim, and it warms up and melts the snows. Veheim nasrin foishrin, and that has the effect of injecting a warmth. It imbues the melting snows with a warmth, and we don't want that warmth. So at that point in time, we'd rather draw the water for the matzah from the wells than from the rivers. Now we go back to the top of Nun Beis Amud Aleph. We continue the Ramah. The Ramah says, "Ve'ein lishpaich mayim shalanu mikayach meis oitekufa hanoifeles." You should not pour out. If you drew mayim shalanu and you prepared mayim shalanu in order to knead the dough for your matzahs, and now somebody passed away in the town, or it happens to be the day when the tekufa, when the season changes. So this would be, let's say, a reference to the spring equinox. Spring, I'm getting confused now, equinox or solstice, whichever one it is. So if on the day that the season changes, so that would be on the days of the equinoxes or the days of the solstices, on those days, the custom was any water that you had out on that day, you didn't use, you would pour it out. So too, any water that you had already drawn from a well or from a river, and then somebody passed away in the town, you didn't use that water, you spilled that water out. And we'll discuss the reason for that in a moment. But before we do that, let's just concentrate, let's focus on the halacha that the Ramah is saying. The Ramah says, you should not pour out the mayim shalanu that you already drew and prepared for the matzah because it is the day of this changing of the season, or because you found out that somebody passed away in the town. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Ois Katan Yud Ches. Ve'ein lishpoich. Why? The reason they poured out these waters is because there was some kind of danger in using that water. What was the danger? So the truth is, if you look at Yeridea and Siman Shin Lamed Tes and Sif Hey, that's where this custom is brought down. And the Shach over there brings down two reasons why you didn't use the water that was drawn and then somebody passed away in the town. He says one reason is that the Malach HaMaves is matil dam mace in the water. Somehow when the Malach HaMaves is traveling around and doing his job, and now he collected somebody passed away, the Malach HaMavetz injects dam maves into any water that was already drawn. So there's a sakana in using that water, so you spill that water out. Another reason that's brought down is that we know the Gemara says it's not good for somebody to be the bearer of bad news. You don't want to speak bad news when you don't have to. Therefore, the custom became, instead of going around and telling people somebody passed away, instead what they did was they told people, pour out your water. That was a remez. That was a hint. Pour out your water. That means somebody passed away. So now you didn't have to speak out the bad news. That's as far as the custom of not using the water in the town when somebody passed away. As far as the changing of the season, something similar is brought down, that also somehow the Malach HaMaves or some other mazik is matil dam maves in the water at the change of the season. However, over here the Ramah is telling us, if you prepared your Mayim Shalanu, you do not have to pour it out on account of either of these reasons. And the Mishnah Berurah says, a nice cut Yudches, ve'ein lishpaich, deshomer mitzvah lo yeda davar ra. You're not going to come onto something bad because you upheld a mitzvah. You don't have to worry that your mitzvah water over here, your Mayim Shalanu, that you drew l'shem mitzvah, you prepared this for the mitzvah of matzahs mitzvah, shomer mitzvah l'yeda davar ra. You don't have to worry that you're going to get harmed by that water. And indeed, the Mishnah Berurah says, v'lav dafka b'matzahs mitzvah. This is not only true when you drew the Mayim Shalanu specifically for the matzah shel mitzvah that you're going to eat by the seder to be yotze the mitzvah. Tehu adin b'shar matzos shetzarich lepesach. This is true for any of the matzah that you're going to use on Pesach. Umikamakayim im efshalai bekal lahasig mayim acherim shalanu. However, the Chavetz Chaim does say, if it is easy for you to come upon new mayim shalanu, nachay lasis kain b'shar matzos. It would be proper if you're talking about the matzahs that you're going to eat on Chol Hamoed or the rest of Pesach, then it would be proper to try and get new mayim shalanu. Umayim sheichen lamatzahs mitzvah ein nachay l'shavchan. But even if it's easy for you to come upon other mayim shalanu, you should not pour out the mayim shalanu that you prepared for your matzah shel mitzvah. Afim efshalei bekal lahasig mayim acherim. Even if it's easy for you to get other mayim shalanu. Why? Because this is a pasuk in Kehelis. Shlomo HaMelech wrote this. And if you go ahead and you pour out the mayim shalanu that you prepared for your mitzvah because you're afraid that you're going to get harmed by using that water, that shows that you're not willing to buy into the notion of Shema mitzvah l'yeda davar ra. And that's not good. You can't be kaifer in a pasuk. So you have to be batuach in the shomer mitzvah l'yeda davar ra. The chol zeh shaykh gam kein le'inyan tekufa. And these reasons also apply to this other problem of the water that you have at the change of the seasons. The same rules would apply. Let me see. I made a mark over here to look at the Dirshu footnote number 29. I don't recall off the top of my head what was there, but let's take a look. 29. Yeah, he says over here, he brings down from the Taz. We just said that the mayim shalanu that you prepared for the matzah shel mitzvah, so that you could use based on the pasuk Kehelis of shomer mitzvah l'yeda davar ra. But we also said that the mayim shalanu that you prepared for the matzahs for the rest of Pesach, you also could use. Now, over there, is there really a mitzvah involved in eating that matzah? It's not really a mitzvah to eat that matzah. If you don't want to eat bread, I guess you don't have to eat bread except for the Yom Tov Sudas. So how come you could drink that water? So the Taz says, Shomer Psayim Hashem. We have another pasuk that says, Shomer Psayim Hashem. Hashem guards the foolish. The Chalila sheyaver dvar takala b'mitzvahs Hashem. Obviously, and this is very pertinent nowadays, obviously people have to make the proper ishtadlus to protect themselves and to protect their health. At the same time, there is a concept of Shomer Psayim Hashem. The Rebbeinu Shalom does guard us, and especially the matzah that you're going to use for the rest of Pesach, even though it's not on the same level as the matzah shel mitzvah that you're going to eat by the Seder, where you're being mekayim a mitzvah Seder Raisa, but still, why are you eating matzah the rest of Pesach? You're not eating matzah the rest of Pesach because you love matzah. You're eating matzah the rest of Pesach because of a mitzvah. They're not the mitzvah to eat the matzah, but the mitzvah that you have, that you're not allowed to have chametz. So you're eating. Why are you eating this matzah? You're eating it because of the Torah Kedosha. So for that, you could rely on what it says, Shomer Psarim Hashem, that Hashem will protect us. It's Hashem. Hashem should protect all of us, especially in these crazy times. And I forgot to mention at the outset of this year, our Torah learning should be a schus for all of those in need, for all of those who are suffering, not only for those that may be ill, but for all of those that were walking around very anxious and very stressed, and for all of those whose lives are turned upside down and homes are turned upside down with the schools closed and parnasa challenges and everything else that comes with it. The Rebbeinu Shalom should give all of us tremendous siyata d'shmaya, and the schus ha-Torah should be megan for Gans Klal Yisrael. Rebbeinu Shalom should have rachmanas and shield Gans Klal Yisrael from harm. Says the Ramah weiter. Nevertheless, even though the Ramah just told you that you don't have to worry about the mayim if someone passed away in the town, or if it was the time of the changing of the tkufa, it still would be a good idea to put a piece of iron into the water while the water is sitting out over there. Put a piece of iron into the water. What's with this piece of iron? Let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah cut your test. Let's say you drew the Mayim Shalanu, and then you realize that, hey, wait a second, tonight is when the season is going to change. He says, okay, so you have the Mayim Shalanu sitting over there. Take a piece of barzel, take a piece of iron, and put it in. Barzel. V'yikach barzel chadash oinaki. You should take a new piece of iron, or a very clean piece of iron, the yislab and meshicha, and hang it with a string, tachamayim, into the water, and we'll get to the why of this in a moment. But preferably, you should not stick your hand into the water. So what the Chavetz Chaim is telling us over here is, I'm telling you that you should dunk a piece of iron, a chunk of iron, into the water to protect it from these problems of the fact that someone died in the city, or the fact that it was the time of the changing of the tkufa. But don't stick your hand into the keli of the mayim shalanu. Why? Shahayad mechame mamayim, because your hand will warm up the water, and we want to avoid any possibility of warming up this water that you're going to use for the lisha of the matzah. As far as the rest of the year, if you have water that you need to protect from these problems, yaniach melach, you could put some salt into the water, and we'll explain that in a moment also. Or you could seal the water. What's at work over here? If you take a look in the Dirshu, in footnote 35, in the second line of that footnote, it says over here, Ubetam hadavar. What is the reasoning? What is the rationale? How does a piece of iron, how does a piece of barzel protect you from these problems? So it says over here, this is brought down from a Prima Gadim, Kasav Sham, Shahu Mishum Sharoshe Atevoi Shalamila Barzel. What are the initials of Barzel? Barzel could be seen as an acronym for Haim Bilha. The Beis is for Bilha, the Reish is for Rachel, the Zayin is for Zilpa, and the Lamed is for Leah. So Barzel is an acronym for the Imayis HaKadoshos, Bilha, Rachel, Zilpa, and Leah. V'chein kasav b'sefer Kav HaYashar, shebeschos ha'imahos, in the merit of the imahos, sheshemasein murumazim b'mila Barzel, whose names are alluded to in the word Barzel, nitzalim misakana zu, we will be protected from this sakana, from this danger. The kasav HaKaf HaChaim says, shekishanoisin es haBarzel b'mayim, when you place the barzel into the water, yomar, you should say, Zechus ha'imahos bila Rachel Zilpa b'Leah shehemidu yudbei shiftei ka, the merit of the imahos bila Rachel Zilpa and Leah, who brought forward the 12 Shiftei Ka, the 12 tribes of the Rabbeinu Shalom, Yamod Lanu should stand for us, Latzilenu Mikol Gezeros Kashais Verois, to protect us from any hard and difficult and ill decrees from Shemayim. And so too, we're mispal here tonight as well, that the schus of the Mois HaKdoshos, in the schus of Rachel, who's Mavaka al Baneha, in the schus of Leah, in the schus of Bilhah, in the schus of Zilpah, the Imois should cry out for us up in Shemayim, and they should protect us from the dangers of the world. Now, in Dirshu footnote 36, it brings down over here, the Mishnah Berurah says that when you use a piece of barzel to protect the water from these problems, it should be chadash, it should be a new piece of barzel, ainaki, or it should be a clean piece of barzel. Kasav adas Torah, what is that word here? Why do we need it to be new and clean? She'ein zeh ela mishum chash chametz. This has nothing to do with this boogeyman stuff that we're talking about over here, about the Malach HaMavis putting Dam Mavis into the water. This is just very practical. We're worried about chametz. You're taking a piece of iron and you're sticking it into the water. We don't know where this iron has been and where it came from. And forget that it might have virus on it. It might have chametz on it. Chametz is a daraisa. So we want to make sure there's no chametz here. Of course, it would be a mashu of chametz, which is a darabanan. Aval, you know, be very careful with those kind of things, by the way, when you make statements like that. My Rebbe, Reuven Feinstein, always says you have to be very, very careful. You can't have throwaway lines when it comes to halacha, because that would be what's called megala panim b'Torah shaloi kahalacha. Somebody who makes statements that are shaloi kahalacha very freely. So you have to be very careful. I just said over here it would be a daraisa. Chametz is a daraisa, but you're worried about throwing a piece of barzel into the water because it might have a mashu of chametz on it. The mashu of chametz would not be nisa daraisa. The mashu of chametz would be nisa darabanan. The rest of the year, if your problem is that you're trying to protect your water from these things, you could put in any piece of barzel. It doesn't have to be chadash or naki. Okay, we go back up to the Ramah. We continue in the Ramah. By me, it's in the middle of the third line, right by the Ois Katan Chaf Aleph for the Mishnah Berurah. Says the Ramah, Gam Aser Lishoiv Mayim Al Yidei Eina Yehudi Lamatzei Shal Mitzvah. It's also forbidden to have a non-Jew draw your Mayim Shalanu. Va'af for the Matzah Shal Mitzvah. The matzahs that you're going to use to be yotze the mitzvah of achilas matzah by the seder, you should not have a non-Jew draw that water. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice cut and chaf aleph. Gam aser lishoiv. It is forbidden to have the mayim shalanu drawn by a non-Jew for the matzah shal mitzvah. Says the Chavetz Chaim, why? The machshire mitzvahu. Because even though the drawing of the mayim shalanu is not specifically a mitzvah, but the drawing of the Mayim Shalanu is machshirei mitzvah. It's the preparations for a mitzvah. V'hurak lechatchila. However, he does say that this is only lechatchila. But the Eved, if a non-Jew did draw the Mayim Shalanu, you can use it. Now, if you take a look at the Be'er Heitev over here in Ois Katan Zion, in Dibra Maschil Miyuchadim, he says over here, when you draw the Mayim Shalanu, you should do it Lishma, you should do it L'Shem Matzahs Mitzvah. That's brought down from the Maharil. And it seems that the Maharil was very makbid. The Maharil felt that this drawing of the Mayim Shalanu is not just Machshirei Mitzvah. It's not just preparation. It really is an inherent part of the mitzvah. Because why do we use Mayim Shalanu? We use Mayim Shalanu because it's cooled down water, and there's less of a chance of it making the dough chametz. So says the Maharil, that is a part and parcel of the mitzvah of shmira, of shmura matzah. So he says it really is a chelik of the mitzvah. Now, if you take a look in the Dirshu, in footnote number 41, that's in the back. So in here at footnote 41, he speaks about this concept that you shouldn't have a non-Jew do it because the Mayim Shalanu is machshirei mitzvah. Ubebir hadavar kasav al Shulchan Aruch Harav. The Shulchan Aruch Harav writes b'shem Pri Chadash shemachshirei mitzvah hein kemitzvah. because the machshirei mitzvah, the things that are necessary preparatory steps for a mitzvah, heim kemitzvah, they're like the mitzvah themselves. Ukishem she'en lasais es mitzvah atzma shehi halisha al yedei hanachri. The same way a non-Jew cannot knead the dough for the matzah, because it has to be done l'shem mitzvah. You also can't have the necessary, the required preparatory steps also can't be done by a non-Jew. Now he says, V'tam noisef, there's another reason. There's another reason why lechatchila the mayim shalanu should not be drawn by anyone other than an adult yid. Kasava Aruch HaShulchan writes, Mishum chibu of mitzvah, because of the belovedness of a mitzvah. The mitzvah is supposed to be beloved to you. How do you go ahead and give it over to a non-Jew to go draw the mayim shalanu? Something that's necessary for the matzah, something that you learn about in halacha that you have to use mayim shalanu for your matzahs, you give it over to a non-Jew to do with your love of the mitzvah. This always reminds me, I always remember when I first came to yeshiva, so I had been in Yeshiva Staten Island for a short amount of time, and I came into the Beis Medrash by night seder, and I noticed that one of the Ner Tamids, Yeshiva has two Ner Tamids in front of the Aron Kodesh, one of them was out. And then the next morning, I saw the non-Jewish handyman come in to change the Ner Tamid, and I was horrified. I said, a Ner Tamid that burns in front of the Aron Kodesh, that's something to beautify, something to give kavod HaTorah. That's something that we want a non-Jew to go change that bulb. What is it? It has the same status as the bulbs in the dining room. It has the same status as any other bulb in the buildings, and they're tamid in front of the Aron Kodesh. So I took it upon myself at that point, and I decided that that's not happening anymore. So from that point forward, I always changed the Ner Tamid. I went, I got a ladder, and I waited to night when the Beis Medrash was empty, and I brought the ladder up to the front of the Beis Medrash. The Ner Tamids are very high up in the yeshiva, and I went and I changed the Ner Tamid myself. And from that became, I did it myself. In later years, after I was married, I wasn't in the yeshiva anymore on such a full-time basis to be able to go do that in the middle of the night. My younger brother did it. After my younger brother did it, my cousins that learned in the yeshiva, they did it. After them, my children did it. One of my children, my son Yehuda Aryeh, does it at Hayom. He's the one who changes them. And I really don't think that in the last 30, close to 40 years, it's now 40 years, I don't think the Ner Tamid has been changed by a non-Jew in the yeshiva since that point. There has to be a chavivas hamitzvahs. Mitzvahs have to be beloved to you. And the kavod HaTorah, and it's something you don't want to give it over to a non-Jew. Okay. Zogt der Ramah weiter. By the Ois Katan Chav Beis for the Mishnah Berurah, the Ramah says, not only should you be sure that the Mayim Shalanu for the Matzah Shel Mitzvah are drawn by a Yid and not by a non-Jew, but the same thing would apply to the matzahs that you're going to use for the rest of the matzahs for Yom Tov as well. V'af l'shar matzahs Yishav Yisrael emefsher. Also, for the rest of the matzahs, a Yid should draw that water if possible. That's brought from the Marchai, the Maharil Brin, the Maharil. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Katlachov Beis, V'af l'shar mitzvahs. The V'af l'shar matzahs. Also, for the rest of the matzahs of Yom Tov, also the Mayim Shalanu should be drawn by a Yid. The Chavetz Chaim says, over here there's a different reason. Mishum shelo yiten l'soichei chametz, because we want to make sure that no chametz ends up in that water. Umikamokaim en bozek peda, there's no kpeda, there's no urgency to that. Mishum shahaminig lisanin, because the custom is to strain the Mayim Shalanu before we use it. So if somebody did drop some crumbs from his sandwich in there, we would strain it out. Okay? Says the Ramah weiter. V'nayhagin litar mayim yuchadim l'matzah mitzvah. The minig is litar mayim miyuchadim lamata shel mitzvah. I'm just struggling with how to interpret the word miyuchadim over here. Sorry, bear with me for a moment. I don't know why this didn't trouble me when I first prepared this. All right, I assume what he means is that the minig is to use mayim yuchadim lamatzei shel mitzvah. In other words, let's say you're drawing mayim shalanu both for the matzah shel mitzvah and for other matzah that people are going to need on Pesach. And so now some of the water is going to be for the matzah shel mitzvah, some of the water is going to be for the rest of the matzahs of Yom Tov. Says the Ramah here, v'nayhagid lital mayim yuchadim lamatzah shel mitzvah. The water that you draw to need the matzah shel mitzvah should be specific, miyuchadim. It should be designated for the matzah shel mitzvah, and that's, I guess, why the Berurah says over here on these words on miyudim, v'yomer b'shas ha'she'iva l'shem matzahs mitzvah. You actually should verbalize when you draw that mayim shalanu that it is l'shem the matzah shel mitzvah. Oh, the Mishnah Berurah also says it. Nice cut chav gimel matzah shel mitzvah. The yomer b'shas ha'she'iva l'shem matzahs mitzvah. You should verbalize that this water is being drawn l'shem matzahs shel mitzvah. Continues the Ramah. V'nayhagin likach klei cheres chadoshim. The minig is to get new earthenware kalim for this mayim shalanu. Ve'ein l'shanais haminig, and the minig should not be changed. Aval b'shel eitz ein lahakbid. If you're going to use wooden kegs, wooden casks to hold the mayim shalanu, then you don't have to be makbid to get new ones. If you're using earthenware, if you're using kli cheres, then you should be makbid to get new ones. Says the Mishnah Berurah, klei cheres kadoshim, new earthenware vessels. Aval lo yishanim, you should not use old ones. Afilu ema you shall pesach, even if they're pesachdik. So even if you have your Pesach earthenware kalim over here that you'd like to use for your mayim shalanu, you should not. You should be makbid to get new ones. V'hataram, the reason is the kleicheres yishanim mi'isi, because old used earthenware kalim get yucky, they get disgusting, they get mo'us. I guess they soften up and they get absorptions in them. Ve'ein ze hidur, and this is not hidur mitzvah to use these kind of earthenware kalim for your mayim shalanu. If you're using wooden casks, then it's not a problem. So it would be with stoneware. Or if you have glazed earthenware kalim, shekarin glazert, if they're glazed, that will protect the earthenware so that it will not become moas. What is our china? Our china is essentially glazed earthenware. This holds true if these vessels were used only for water. Let's say you used these earthenware kalim for mei peros, which literally translates as fruit juices. However, the Chavetz Chaim says here in the parentheses, perish. What do I mean when I say mei peros? Kol hamashkin chutz mimayim, any other beverages other than water, nikroin mei peros l'inyan zeh, are referred to as mei peros in the context of this halacha. So if you have these earthenware kalim that you used for other beverages other than water, toiv lizar shaloi lishoy bay ela imkein higilu mikaidem, then you should not use them to draw your mayim shalanu unless you did hagala on them first. Lefi shemei peros kishemis arev ma'at mehem b'mayim, because if you use a keli that was used for mei peros, and now you want to use it for your mayim shalanu, if a minute amount of the mei peros remains in the keli, and now it gets mixed with the water, memarin hamayim lahachmitza isa sheni loisha behem. Now, when you need a dough using this water that has a tiny bit of mei peros in it, it will cause the dough to become chametz quickly. Like we're going to see later on in Taf Samach Beis, that mei peros makes the chimus process happen faster. Upshita deroi lesar mashaloichin chaviyos gedolos shemachzikim em dvashim adichin oisan. He says it's a davar pashut. It's obvious that we should forbid those who purchase large casks that had been used for honey and they wash it out to use it for the mayim shalanu. And they use it to hold the water that will be used for the kneading in the bakeries. The Isser Gomorhu, he says, the Chavetz Chaim says it's an Isser Gomor. It's totally forbidden. The Maflit Hamei Peres, because these kalim will give out, they'll be pilot, the Mei Peres that are in them, that will become mixed with the water, and it could speed up the chimas process. Chavetz Chaim also says it would be better that lechatchila you should not draw your mayim shalanu using copper kalim, va'afilu chadash, even if they're new copper kalim, lefi she'hanechoshes mechamim, because copper heats up what's in it. Why would copper heat up what's in it? Well, we do know that copper cookware is very popular nowadays because copper is an excellent conductor of heat, and therefore when you cook with it, it spreads out the heat very evenly. It gives you even cooking. I guess what the Chavetz Chaim is saying here is that since copper is an excellent conductor, it will conduct any heat that's available, and it will imbue the mayim shalanu with heat, which is exactly the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish with mayim shalanu. We need the matzah with mayim shalanu because we want cool water. However, ava b'diavad ein lachush. Chavetz Chaim does say that if you did draw the water using copper kalim, b'diavad you don't have to worry. And even if this water remained in copper kalim for several days, or he says many days, you still could use it to knead the matzah. As far as, let's say, your kneading bowl, the bowl that you're actually going to do the kneading in, let's say that's copper. Is that a problem? Chavetz Chaim says no. Even lechatchila, you could use a copper bowl to knead the matzah in. The ein nizharin ela shelo lishoy behem mayim. The only hakpada that we have is that you should not draw the mayim shalanu using copper kalim. Shahamayim tzrichen tzinon laila echad. Because as we have said, the mayim shalanu needs to cool down for a full overnight period. And if you're going to draw the water, when do you draw the water? Remember, we said you draw the water bein hashmashas. You draw the water after shkia. So already when you're drawing the water, it already has to be in a situation that it could be cooling off. If you're going to draw the water in a copper keli, we're afraid that right now the water is not cooling off because it's in a copper keli. So do not draw the water in a copper keli. Because it's not going to cool off the same way it would in other kalim. Now we go back up to the Mechaber in Seif Beis. The Mechaber says, Yesh Oimrim, there are those that say, this is brought down from the Orchas HaChaim in the name of the Ravid, Yesh Oimrim, there are those that say, Shamayim hamunchunasin b'cisterna, water that is collected in a cistern. What is a cistern? So, we know what a cistern is. Let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah. Ois katan chafov, b'cisterna, hu min be'er. This is similar to a well, habonui, which is built, tachtov usvivaisav. It has a man-made floor, and it has man-made walls. So basically, a cistern is an underground holding tank that you built out of masonry. Usually, it would have a masonry floor and masonry walls. It might even have a top, and it might be covered over with earth. So it's an underground holding tank. So, like the Mishnah says, "Umin be'er aboni tachtav usvivaisav, v'gam milamalahu mechusa." It's also covered on top. V'areihem kimenchunasin bekli. So the water that's being held in this cistern is essentially water that's contained in a keli. And what is mayim shalanu? We said what we need for mayim shalanu is we need to draw the mayim shalanu from the water source, and we need to put it into a keli so that it should rest overnight in a keli and cool down. Well, the mayim in the cistern, the water in the cistern, essentially is water in a keli. And it does not get heated up from the heat that was injected into the ground, into the earth by the sun. because there's a manufactured floor that's interposed between the water in the tank and the earth that's underneath it. And since the cistern is also covered on top, the sun is not striking the water from the sky. Therefore, the Mishnah Berurah said in the first opinion, the Mechaber said here in Siv Beis in the first opinion, Yesh Oimrim Shamayim Amachanasa B'Sisterna Motololosh Pem Samach L'Shi'ivasam. There are those that say that if you had water in a cistern and now you realize you need water to knead your dough for the matzah, so you go to the cistern and you draw water from the cistern. Do you have to make that water rest overnight to be Mayim Shalanu? Yeshar, remember that not, because it's already Mayim Shalanu by virtue of the fact that it was in the cistern. However, the Mechaber says on the bottom line, Ve'ein lahakal badavar, you should not be lenient in this matter. You should not use this water for your lisha imloi b'shas adchak, unless it is a pressing circumstance. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Chav Zayin, Ve'ein lahakal, you should not be makel, you should not be lenient in this. Shaharei anu royin shamayim shebesaycha einait sainin klau. The Chavetz Chaim says we see that the fact is that the water contained in the cistern is not cool. V'yesh loymar, and it's possible to say, kevan dahabinyan mechuber lakarka, since this is an underground tank and it is connected to the ground, indeed it's submerged in the ground. Avshehu marutzaf, even though it's lined with your binyan, it's lined with your masonry or whatever you built the tank out of. It's still, the water contained in the cistern is still warmed by the sun. The words of the Chavetz Chaim is referring to the words of the Chazal, the sun that goes underneath the ground. So whatever that means, it might mean the warmth that's injected by the sun into the ground. And therefore the cistern water needs a lina, it needs to be drawn, put into a keli, and rest overnight, the same way well water or river water would, unless you're in a very pressing circumstance. This whole discussion, even the first opinion of the Mechaber over here, that allows you to use the cistern water, that's only if the cistern is not getting water from underneath its floor. Those people who have water problems in their basements know that the water table comes up and it will penetrate the floor of your basement. So if you have an underground cistern that's taking on groundwater through its floor or through its walls, then you definitely can't use that water without making it Mayim Shalom first. If it's taking on groundwater through the floor, or if you have a pipe coming into the cistern, that's always pouring water into the cistern. I don't know what that is, what those words mean, but if you have pipes coming in that are collecting water and bringing water into the cistern, then you can't be lenient and use this water without making it Mayim Shalanu, even in a pressing circumstance. Because in this scenario, the water that's in the cistern is connected to the water that's outside the cistern. The water that's in some kind of plumbing apparatus. Also, you cannot be makel to use that water. Even if it's covered, it's only covered on top, not from underneath. I'm not 100% sure what he's referring to over there. We're going to stop over here. So, B'ez Hashem, tomorrow we will pick up at Mishnah Berurah Eiskat and Chav Ches on the bottom line here. Everybody should be safe. Everybody should be healthy. Everybody should take the opportunity now to be mispal to the Ribbono Shel Olam, to become closer to the Ribbono Shel Olam. All of your worries and all of your fears, let's remember Chuas Hashem keheref ayin. All of the talking heads, they talk about 15 days and 6 weeks and 8 weeks and June and July and 18 months. And The lesson of matzah, Rabbi Say, we're learning about matzah. The lesson of matzah is shalei hispik b'tzeikam lahachmitz. There wasn't enough time for the dough to become chametz, and the Ribbono Shel Olam snapped his fingers and said, "It's time to leave Mitzrayim." Chuas Hashem keheref ayin. We could blink, and this whole crisis is over. and life goes back to normal, even better yet, we could blink and Mashiach comes, and we're all in Eretz Yisrael for Pesach, and we have a Beis Hamikdash, and we have Kayanim B'Avodatam, Leviim B'Shiram, Yisrael Leviim B'Shiram U'B'Duchanam. So we could have the most wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Pesach. Shuas Hashem Karef Ayin, the Rosh should bring Yeshuas and Refuas and protect everybody. Everybody should have Simcha and Gesund and everything good. Thank you so much for joining us. Schos HaTorah should be stand for Gans Klal Yisrael. Be well.